Hello, I am Jody Wolfborn. I'm here to talk to you about how the principles of DevOps can actually help save the world instead of just our sanity and our lives. As Thomas said, I work at Chef. I'm a solutions architect there, but I prefer to say that I'm a secret agent because it sounds kind of cooler. And someday I'm hoping like putting that on my resume will get me recruited by the CIA or something. So I'm just putting it out in the universe for that to come back to me. So I would like to tell you a little bit about me. I don't actually want to tell you about me, but I was told that a good speech has a little bit of an introduction. So why am I up here? What is my background that allows me to talk about how DevOps can save the world? I started my engineering career at the ripe young age of 8 at the Oregon Museum of Science and Industry, which is really similar in style to the Nemo Museum here, which I dragged my husband to on a Sunday to run around with like 300 screaming children. It was a little bit of a mistake on my part, but it was still fun. They had an exhibit there that involved puzzles essentially to connect an actual like physical circuit to make a light up. And my dad is sort of in the engineering industry as well, and he challenged me, and I beat him at the age of 8, and I was like, yes, I am good at making connections. I think that's what I want to do with my life. Then I moved on to quality assurance engineering at the age of 10, where I was playing The Legend of Zelda and trying to break it as many ways as I could. And I would like to say, this is not part of my speech, but a very big thank you to Thomas, who set up the classic gaming corner last night at Cafe. It wasn't you? Oh, well. I'm sorry, whoever it was, thank you so much. It was awesome, and my husband and I had an amazing time playing a bunch of classic video games. I even played as Link, so I lived up to my 10-year-old self's dreams last night. Now I have moved on to sales engineering at Chef Software. I manage a team of solutions architects, which is a fancy word for secret agent or sales engineer. And my goal there is to connect them with the resources they need in order to be successful in their jobs. So there's a little bit of a theme. I really like making connections between problems and solutions. It's what I love doing. And so that is why I am here talking to you about DevOps in the world. If you were here last year, I did a speech, a 5-minute Ignite speech on imposter syndrome, and you can probably tell that I am suffering from it right now as well, because I keep like shifting back and forth and playing with this pointer, which was probably a bad idea to have it in my hand, but whatever. I also really like punctuation, so there's going to be punctuation on all of my slides. There's not enough exclamation marks and question marks in programming code, so I got to put them in my slides when I can. Okay, so I want to start out with a couple of definitions. The first, I think we all kind of have an idea of what DevOps means to each of us and to each other as a whole. But I want to kind of reiterate some of the main principles because they're the tools that we're going to use to save the world in the end. So, what is DevOps? It's a cultural and professional ideology that focuses on enabling its people to solve the problems in the systems that they're building or that they're participating in. There's a big focus on continuous learning, iterative improvement, going back and saying, hey, that was good, but can we make it better? Or, hey, that was terrible, how can we make it better? And then one of the core principles is a little bit of man, I can't think of the word in English for what I mean, but one of the principles is a diversity of tools and experiences and skill sets, right? Because if I'm just an Apache developer, if I only know my one system, how can I contribute back to the group without without that diversity. We need that variety in order for stuff to grow. So let's talk about the definition of diversity. There's a couple boring definitions from the dictionary. Basically, the dictionary definition is the inclusion of a wide variety of different representations. So whether that's a race or a religion, a socioeconomic background, it doesn't really matter. It's about including all of those things together or bringing them all together. And the DevOps definition, I like to say it has to include rainbow because it's DevOps. So it's a rainbow array, also a DevOps term. See, I'm working them in there, of skills and ideas and backgrounds and experiences, and everybody coming together to say, hey, we have this problem, and these are the little bits of the solution that I can contribute. I may not have the whole solution, but I do have small pieces that will contribute to it. So that is why diversity is very important in DevOps, because we're all trying to solve the problems of our systems the most efficient and effective way. Next. So there are 4 main principles of DevOps that I want to talk about today, and those are scalability, flexibility, responsibility, and portability. And I'll go into what each of these is and how it sort of applies to the world, but you're probably thinking like, hey, I'm here at DevOps Days, Amsterdam, and although Amsterdam is a very appealing city to come to on its own, we all came here today to discuss in an effort to improve our jobs or our organizations or the applications that we're developing, and more importantly, our industry, right? That's kind of why we all came together, is to improve what's happening in our industry. So if you break it down beyond those catchphrases, though, DevOps is about adding value into a system in order that that system then generates value back, right? You want to improve it so that it can help improve you. So what are the symptoms of There we go. What are the symptoms of a system gone wrong? Try to think about like an application that you've developed, a team that you've worked on, a project that you've done, and think of the different ways that it's gone wrong in terms of these DevOps principles, right? The opposite of scalability is uncontrollable growth, whether that's stunted growth, like you've reached a place where you can't improve your application because it's such a monolithic monster, or it's using so many legacy technologies that you can't really expand from there without kind of trashing it and moving on. Or pandemic growth, like rampant growth. You're hiring 6,000 people per month or something like that. I mean, that's pretty crazy. So if you're doing that, let me know, and we should talk about your business plan. But I think you get the picture, right? There is also, the opposite of flexibility then is going to be brittle rigidity. So like you can't make the changes that you need to make because it's so monolithic, or you don't have the tools that you need to do that. Blame shifting, right? Like, it wasn't me, he changed that code, so like, go talk to him about it. I know exactly what went wrong and how to fix it, but I don't want to be blamed for it, so I'm gonna fade back into the shadows and I'm just gonna watch while he gets skewered alive for doing what he thought was right. And then the last symptom is like a heavy esoteric system. So whether this is, again, an application or a team or your entire organization, you should be able to pick it up and move it, and it still function exactly as it did over here, right? So what does this have to do with the world, though? So far, I've just been talking about issues with DevOps. Let's look at these symptoms, though, and think if maybe we can identify things in the world that are happening that follow these symptoms, right? Uncontrollable growth, like that sounds like overpopulation a little bit, I don't know. Disparate economies, so where one group of your system is barely surviving and the other part of that system is thriving and like throwing money away, or like disparate education. So it costs, in the US, it costs like a fourth of a house just to get an education after high school. And by the way, the public school system before that, I'm sure you're all aware, not great. So the fact that you also have to take out a mortgage just to get an education in the US, it's not scalable. That doesn't work. What about political systems or dogmatic intolerance? People who are unwilling to accept, you have a different viewpoint than me, so now we can't be friends, or we can't even talk to each other, or even worse, I'm gonna move out of this country because you disagree with me or because I disagree with you. It's a very us versus them mindset, and it's fairly, I think we can all see that in the world. And the blame shifting, like who has not heard liberal versus conservative, right versus left, Clinton versus Trump, you know, like everything is about this battle to make sure that the other person looks worse than you do, and it shouldn't be. We are at a DevOps conference, so it wouldn't be a presentation without a ton of internet memes. The reason this slide exists, though, is because this is evidence of each of us feeling these symptoms in our world today, right? These are internet memes, and internet memes are a way for us to express our frustration or our distaste or our excitement over things, right? That's why they exist. That's why they become so popular. The fact that I can fill a whole page just by like one Google image search on like unrest memes, that this is evidence that our world desperately needs some sort of solution, some sort of connection to each other. And these are, I tried to get multiple countries on here, not just American-centric or English-centric, right? The problems of this world, I mean, by definition, they're global, right? Yes, so why should we apply these principles? Well, because we're all unhappy with what's going on in the world, and that is evidence in what we're producing on the internet. Okay, so let's actually talk about addressing these issues using the core principles of DevOps. From Catherine's speech yesterday, I kind of stole her definition of scalability because I really liked it. So I paraphrased it up here, though. It's the ability to reinforce the core principles of DevOps, essentially, at all the various inflection points in your system's lifecycle. I want to take the word DevOps out, though, and just replace it with system. DevOps is a system in and of itself. Our industry is a system in and of itself. The tools that we're developing, those are systems as well. So the word system should apply to all those levels, right? We have to be able to scale beyond just the DevOps world and just the tech industry. How do we do that? We contribute our ideas back into the system, right? So if you, one of the ways that you can do this is by starting to cut down the waste that you are producing, right? This all kind of starts at the you level. I can't force this whole room to do what I'm saying. That would be a scary power. I think it would be kind of cool to test out, but I won't test it out. I can't force you all to do anything. You can only make that decision for yourself. And when you disagree with someone, you also gotta accept that you cannot force them to agree with you, no matter how right you know you are. It's not about forcing them to agree. It's about contributing your ideas and knowledge back into there and collectively coming up with the actionable items. So be open to disagreements that don't end with you being right, that end with you and the other person moving forward and deciding on a solution that might not feel great at the time, but that is hopefully working toward a perfect solution. The second one, and I'm really glad that Catherine talks so much about building empathy. It's so huge. If you saw my Ignite speech last year, it's all about being empathetic towards yourself and towards other people. Don't assume that people have the knowledge that you have. Don't assume that they agree with you, and don't assume that they're wrong just because they do disagree with you. You need to build those relationships with the people that you disagree with as well. Like, that's hard. Trust me, I love being right all the time. Ask my husband, I am never wrong. But that doesn't build very much trust or empathy with people who disagree with me, right? Just by fact of me stating I'm right because I believe I am, I'm already excluding anyone who does not have that same viewpoint as me. So use that tool, build the trust between the people that you disagree with and the people that you agree with so that you can have a diversity of experience and backgrounds. And then use whatever tools you have to accelerate collaboration and affinity. If it doesn't do that, don't use it. If arguing and debating about your political standpoints isn't accomplishing anything, maybe think about stopping debating and deciding on a different tactic. The next one is flexibility. So the ability to get stuff done and pull those experiences and knowledge and tool sets that you have to improve your system. So from this point on, you should also be starting to integrate other people's viewpoints into your mindset. If you don't agree to integrate and to pull in other people's experiences and knowledge and tool sets, then you're not going to grow from where you are, right? Like, you're just going to remain static and your system is going to implode eventually. You also need the ability to connect the problems to the solutions, or connect the solutions to the problems, right? So like I was saying, that is one of the things I love doing. You need to maintain that ability, and really the only way to maintain that ability is to continuously reach out and have that feedback loop open with other people. How are you going to know what the abilities of your system are if you're just focused on your own abilities? So how are you going to know how to improve the education system in the US if all you continue to do is look at the education system in the US? If you're trying to improve the relationships between the different communities in your neighborhood, you can't just look at how it will improve your community. You need to put yourself in the shoes of the other person and say, like, what are the problems they're trying to solve, as well as what are the problems I'm trying to solve? What is our common goal, and how can I help them accomplish the goals that might not be common to myself? And continuously iterate, like, keep going, keep coming back and saying, hey, this worked. Take a retrospective and say, these are the things that we did well and that actually did add value into our system. These are the things that we did well and they didn't add value into our system. And maybe move those things that don't add value around. Be flexible to change with your system. That that too is like, I can't understate that you should be flexible to change. If you want other people to be flexible towards your ideas, you gotta be flexible towards their ideas. You have to say, yes, I do love this one tool that I've been using, but everybody around me is telling me that this other tool is a much bigger improvement. Maybe I can open my eyes and try that tool out. Man, responsibility is a hard one. How many people have had discussions in the last couple days about blameless postmortems or retrospectives that are, I can't think of all the words, open retrospectives, all that kind of stuff. I've had a couple of discussions about it, and people seem to be a little bit on the fence as to at least the words that we use to describe that functionality, right? We still need to take responsibility for the issues in our system, even if we didn't create those issues or even if we're not part of those issues. So again, when Thomas changes the code and everything breaks in production, I'm not gonna go, it was him, peace out, and just leave, right? I'm gonna go, I think what happened was a change got introduced into the system. Here's what it was, here's what it did, and here's how we can fix it. Like, we can all agree that that gets stuff done much faster than he did it, and then he has to work past, first of all, I'm pointing a finger at him, and that is in itself the physical language of like, you've done something wrong, and everybody look at what he's done. Like, it's one finger and it still draws that much attention, right? That is already wasting time that we could be fixing the issue. So, who cares who done it? How about we just take responsibility and move forward? We all got to this point regardless of who pushed the button. Our system is in a broken state, let's fix it. Don't assume that anybody knows or did or wanted to do anything. There is a common phrase that I hear, assume positive intent. I think even that assumption is a little bit too much. Don't assume they had intent at all. Maybe he didn't, I don't know. It's not like Thomas was like, hey, I'm gonna ship this change into production to kill everything, right? Like, but he might not have also intended to ship it at all. And so me saying, well, he did this and he wanted to get his change out there. I'm sure it was for a good reason. He wanted to fix something. Well, he might be like, no, I didn't even mean to get it out there in the first place. So I might be ignoring an issue like, how did it get out if you weren't intending it to get out, right? I'm ignoring that issue to focus on the issue of who did it, and that's not healthy, that's not effective. Even though I've been doing it for like the last 5 minutes, avoid finger pointing, right? Like, don't blame. The important thing is that you decide on an appropriate action to take, right? If that appropriate action happens to be lock down Thomas's production credentials, or unfortunately, this is the 5th time you've made this exact same mistake.
Sorry.
And you said you were sorry the last 4 times too, you know? Like, sometimes you do have to make those hard decisions. Like, we gotta let you go, dude, sorry. My fake company can't handle this many production outages. Come back! See, he accepted responsibility, right? But also, he needs to seek feedback if he's unsure why this is happening, right? You can say, yes, I did make that change, and I am sorry. Can you guys help me figure out a way to move forward from this point? I'm panicked because I just took down production, and my brain is not thinking clearly about how I can fix it. I need your feedback. I need that loop for you to all come back, and instead of saying, oh my gosh, you dummy, you did that, for you to say, yeah, next time, this could help prevent it, and also here's the solution moving forward. Again, it comes back to enablement, like give the system the power to implement the changes that it needs, and the trust to implement those changes as well. There we go. Okay, and then the last principle that we talked about was portability. Portability is for me, what it means is the ability to pick up the knowledge and the experiences and all of the skill sets and tool sets of your system and move them out into another part of that system. It kind of goes back to the scalability thing of being able to apply this at all the inflection points of your system. My system, I have several systems. I'm sure everybody here does, right? You have your personal system, you have your professional system, then you have like your social systems, right? And all these different bubbles that sort of represent who you are. If you can't take the knowledge from those bubbles and move them into other bubbles, you have a portability issue. You need to be able to share the knowledge and the things that you're learning with other people. And at a global level, most of my examples are American examples. I apologize. It's pretty prevalent in my brain right now, if you can imagine. But one of the examples that I think helps describe this on a more global level is, let's say there is a system that is in disarray. And another system decides, hey, I'm going to go help this disarray system by I'm just going to copy and paste my code on top of them. And because it's worked for me. The code has worked in my system over here. I'm just going to paste it onto their system and hope that it works there. And it doesn't, right? Because the knowledge, the experiences, and the skill sets that you have had no connection to that other system up until the point you decided to copy and paste it onto that system. So you didn't have that, or not you, sorry. The system didn't have that feedback loop with the disarray system. All they saw was, hey, you're in disarray, your production site is down, or whatever. You really can't assume that everybody has the same knowledge and experiences that you do. And if you assume that certain people don't need to know everything that's going on in your system, you're gonna exclude people, and you're gonna create this system where I'm standing here going, I'm not sure what the answer to this question is, and on top of that, I don't know who to ask. So I'm just gonna stand here and hope that nobody realizes I don't know the answer. Or I'm gonna make up an answer and fluff it up and hope that people believe what I'm saying. How is that going to benefit any other system? It isn't. So don't assume that people don't need the information that you need. These are some of the tactics that you can employ to make your system portable. So shadowing, going out and viewing the full spectrum of your system so that you know when stuff goes wrong, what the people who are in that part of the system, what they're feeling. You have empathy for those people. So if you're from a small town and you want to help save the world, right? Go out into other parts of the world. Go out and observe what other people are doing. Whether it's succeeding or failing, it doesn't matter, right? You're gonna learn from all of that anyway. So go out and experience those things, and go out and talk to other people who have experienced those things. Talk to everybody in this room, right? It's, yeah. Do it. You can also pair. So me and someone I don't necessarily agree with work together on a similar solution, a similar goal, and I start to feel the pain that they feel when they're trying to develop in this system. Mentoring, so please, please, please distribute that expertise, right? If we figure out, hey, at age 7, it's much more healthy for children to start school at 9:30 in the morning instead of 8:30 in the morning, and here are the metrics that prove that. Don't just keep that in your district, right? Like, talk to your education board, talk to the school system and say, hey, I have all this information, I've collected this experience and this knowledge, and I would like to share it with you. Whether you do anything with it or not, that is not something that I can influence. All I can do is share the information with you and hope that we can work together to build something better. Maybe when you distribute that information, they'll come back and say, well, actually, we found that productivity of 7-year-old increases 100% at 9:15 in the morning instead of 9:30. And then you can take that back to your system and apply that 15-minute change for a 100% increase in efficiency. And the last is so important. Make information stupid easy for people to get. It shouldn't be this big deal where I have to ask 17 people just to figure out who to ask the question of, right? Expertise, all of that stuff is great. And yes, like, develop your expertise, but also share it with people. And when you're developing it, say like, whatever notes you take a picture of them and put them on like a drive somewhere. And if people really want to see that information, they can. Like, make it available. You don't know. Someone else might learn in the exact same way you do, and the notes that you contribute back will help them. I think that's my timer, right? Oh, okay, I have one more. Whoop. Okay, so one of the questions that has been asked frequently after speeches is, how do I apply whatever you just taught me out into a world that doesn't understand DevOps? How do I apply it in my necktie corporation where they're all like, they don't want to do anything? Man, this is a hard question. And DevOps is my system right now, or the system that I'm in right now, and the value that I can add back is to say, like, hey, take all of these principles, not just the ones I'm talking about, but the ones you're learning about and developing today and in your workplace, and apply them at all the inflection points of your system, not just your organization, not just your family life or anything like that. All the points in your system. It's not hard to contribute your information back to the system. I think most people feel fairly good when they teach someone something else, right? If I said, hey, 1 + 1 is 2, and someone was like, oh, I didn't know that, and now I do. Like, I feel awesome because they just learned something, and that feeling spreads. Pay it forward. The person you're helping doesn't need to understand DevOps. Your corporation doesn't need to understand DevOps for you to start implementing those practices. It's just about taking that first step forward and saying, I am going to commit to contributing what I just learned back into my system, and hopefully other people will start pulling that out of the store I'm creating and spreading it around to the rest of my system. So that is it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. All right. We have time for some questions. The first question is, do you think you're going to get a book if you ask a question? You might. So, any questions in regard to this? They're so shy.
Very straightforward.
Yeah. I think, by the way, even at the 10th DevOps stage, we still need to explain what DevOps is. Here we have a question.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for a great presentation.
Thank you.
Just one question. Can you give some examples how you use these practices?
In the real world?
In the real world. Like your personal stories, maybe short.
Yes. So, all right. I'll try and think of a good one. I have a story that kind of maps from professional life and into personal life. So I manage a team of sales engineers. 2 of them have signed up to participate in a project. They're contributing back, and they're actually building some really awesome code. And anyway, at some point in the process, another engineer was pulled into the team, and he has been at the company for a number of years more than either of these 2 engineers. Regardless, though, these 2 engineers have been working with our product for much longer than they've been at the company. So they are actually experts in our product, even though they've only been there for a small amount of time. Starting out this project, the person that we brought in, that we actually invited into our system, came in and said, oh yeah, it'll be good to get a senior engineer to pair with you guys on this code. And I'm like, how do you define senior? Because these guys have been working with this stuff for 7 years. So if you're trying to imply that at some point in time your 8 years or however many years makes you a senior and them a junior, or that shouldn't happen. We shouldn't be applying those labels. You're making an assumption about that person's level of knowledge that's based on almost nothing. In my personal life, my father-in-law is a little bit of a know-it-all, which is, I kind of am too. And so we have some really interesting conversations where I'm like, nope, you're wrong about that. And he's like, no, you're wrong about that. And it's just like this beep, beep, back and forth. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. At some point he was like, you're a contrarian. You're not a know-it-all, you're a contrarian, just so that he could be right about what we were. Change the word and that makes him right. Sorry, that was a little bit of a tangent. He suffers really heavily from imposter syndrome. He was let go from a job a while ago for a long period of time, and he's been back in the working industry for 10 years or something like that, but he still feels like this damage from that period in his life. And it comes off as this I know everything. I have to put that out there so that people don't see I don't actually know everything. I just assumed he was a know-it-all and that was part of his personality. And then I did a speech on imposter syndrome, and it came back to him that that's why I had been traveling and speaking and stuff. And he was like, oh my gosh, I suffer from imposter syndrome almost every second of the day of my life. And he shared that with me, and he and I have been suffering from the same exact thing for so long, and kind of pitting ourselves against each other instead of being like, hey, Sean, I also suffer from this, and you don't have to prove that you know anything, and I don't have to prove that I know anything. We can work together, and instead of arguing about whether that mountain is named such and such or whatever, why don't we talk about going and climbing that mountain instead? We're both obviously interested in it. Let's go do that together. So that's a very small scale example, right? But that's how you have to start out. You can't. I'm not going to say that I've applied these principles to the US politics, right? Because I'm not at that level of the system just yet. Maybe someday. But you have to start applying it in the inflection points that you're at. So hopefully that answers your question.
All right. There's going to be a book for you, but you see that guy up there? You need to go to him and pick one of 2 books. All right, that's it. Thank you, Jody, again.
Thank you.